to Riding the Pine. This is our review of Game 48 of the 2020-21 Chicago Blackhawks season. Tonight, the Blackhawks fell to the Nashville Predators by a score of 3-1. But before we get to that review, if you could do me a really big favor, hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you've not done so already. Helps us out a lot. Also, hit that notifications bell. That way, we will have to come to you. You won't have to come looking for us. You will know exactly when we upload every time, as you will get a ping notification on your device of choice. And with that, I will throw it over to Joe. Joe, looks like the playoffs are officially out of the question.
Yeah, it's really, but I think we got to look at, how, the team, I would say, I think exceeded a lot of our expectations this year. I know there was a lot of fans, myself included, that didn't think we'd win, maybe 15 games or 16 games this year. And, we're already at, I think, 20 or 21. So, you know what? Hey, we got there. We didn't have the pieces to get over the top. And, obviously, I think what they talked about it on the broadcast, the Blackhawks can only really look at this 8-game series against Nashville. And when you only take 4 out of a possible, 16 points. I mean, that's the difference between where we're at now and, where we would be probably had we won even 3 or 4 of the matchups.
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, I think you can also argue that in reverse, that perhaps the Hawks had a really good run between late January and early February, and that they were playing all of the bad teams. Like, I think between Columbus and Detroit, the two teams behind them, they lost 4 games out of the 16. So
Against, okay.
Because, or did they only lose to Columbus once? I think maybe they only lost 3 out of 16 to those two teams. So, there's some padding there. They've only beat Tampa once. I think if they beat Florida
Which
twice.
that was, I think that was more than we expected. I mean, I know with Tampa, it was like either, we were definitely not going to beat them probably at the very best more than twice. So.
Yeah, I think the shocker was that they did so well against Columbus. I don't think anybody in the league had Columbus being as bad as they are. So that's probably the big difference.
And I think they played against Carolina, it seemed like, pretty well too.
Yeah, I mean they won 2 games so far, I think.
Yeah, I think.
And
So, but they've been in the games where, they haven't really
yeah.
blown out by Carolina at all. So,
Well, and I think that's why I was optimistic of the future of the team, because if you looked back at the bubble, I, I know a lot of people, I think you included, thought they were very overmatched against Vegas. I think I was one of the few that thought they were pretty even for the most part. I just thought Vegas had much more top end talent that could score. Goaltending, they were far superior. I frankly have never been on the Crawford train. And I think obviously I think even starting in 2015 with that Nashville series then, that's a very interesting series. I think when you go back and you look at it, about where the Hawks were and where they were going. Because if I'm not mistaken, didn't they lose the first 2 games of that series against Nashville in 2015?
I think so, but no, they won game 1 because that's when Keith they came back from being down 3-0, right?
I don't know, because
Yeah,
they won in game 6. That was a 6-game series.
right.
But I was thinking they were like at some point they were down in the series, and Crawford was playing like shit. And that 3-0 game, I don't think was the first, or I don't think that was the first game when Darling came in. So I don't know if that was game 2 or game
No,
3.
that was the first game. Yeah, because
Was
I
it?
remember. Yeah, the Blackhawks were down 3-0 after the first. Then I think Darling came in and relieved Crawford, and then that's when the Hawks started, clicking, and then they tied the game, and yeah, and then Keith won it in double overtime, and then actually, yeah, the Blackhawks I think went, yeah, then Nashville won game 2 in a blowout. Um, and then the Blackhawks won, I think the next, what was it?
2.
I think it was the next two.
The
And then
Nashville
Nashville
one.
won to stave off elimination. And then the Hawks won the next two after that. So,
Well, they would have only had to win the one,
or the
right?
one. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the Hawks won in 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
4 games to 2. So,
Yeah, but I think that was kind of the early signs of the demise, because Nashville looked really good in that series, and Crawford was not good. Um, and like that, the Hawks kind of got their mojo back after that series, I think. Who was the second round opponent? Was it St. Louis again?
oh, I think it was,
Because it was Minnesota. It
yeah,
was
I think it was
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Because Oduya went down, or not Oduya. Roosevelt went down in what, game 4? Because it was that a sweep?
I'm
God,
looking at it
it
now. I
seems like
think it,
so short time ago, but it's hard to remember. Because Anaheim went 7 games.
yeah, the Hawks swept them. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think,
Four
yeah,
nothing.
Roosevelt broke his ankle in game 4. And that was kind of spelling doom, everybody thought, when had Anaheim coming up.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I think that was kind of like, you could see the wheels were starting to fall off. And Bickle wasn't himself. And the Seabrook was starting to show age. Keith was still at his best, probably, but I think Jarmelson was starting to wear down. So everything, like, yeah, and then obviously they had to start selling off players. Um, but I don't know. Like, I just feel like even now this team is, and I think most people that are rational would go, they're kind of a middling team. Like, if you tinker with it enough, you've probably got a really good team, especially once the defense gets its experience. But the offense is just so inconsistent. And I don't even know if it's inconsistent. It's just, I feel like they're a team full of playmakers and they can't score. They can't finish because they get their chances. And I also don't like the coaching. Like, um, I guess I'll just say this. So, like, I think the review tonight is going to be pretty barren. I'll just go ahead and say Malcolm Subban was not good tonight. I don't think he's the reason they lost, though. I know Eddie made a comment at the end of the game that they had to get a save, and I would retort, you got to get a goal, more than a goal. Like, if you don't score more than one goal, you're going to lose 99% of hockey games. So it's kind of shitty, I think, to hang this one on Subban. Granted, they were bad goals he gave up, but still, uh, this offense just doesn't score. Like, I don't, there's nothing more to say there. I thought the defense for the most part was fine, except for Boquist, who I got caught at the end. But I kind of want to spend most of this kind of just reevaluating the team and where they're at, I think, and kind of some news that's percolating around. as to what they're planning on doing in the offseason, potential draft picks as well. But um, there's a lot of decisions that have to be made. Me and Joe were talking about it before jumping on. We've talked about it before, but it's getting, I think, more that's what I think concerns me is it's getting more complicated as time goes by because I don't know. Like, I think everybody is assuming Dahan is gone, which I don't really consider that a loss. Frees up about $5 million, just under $5 million cap space. So that's nice. You can use that to bring Suter back and do all your re-signings that you need to do. But, Kalynuk, I think, is really picked up another assist tonight. He's got 3 points in his last 4 games. I think he's really established himself as someone who should be playing every night. I mean, he looks like he could be a top pair guy. Great outlet passes, skating's there. I mean, he's occasionally got caught, yeah, sure, but this is only like his 13th game, I think. Beaudin, on the other hand, this is his first game in like a month. He picked up an assist tonight as well. He's got 5 points in 14 games. I'd like to see more of him. And I don't think Mitchell either would be too terrible to keep seeing. I think he's been pretty good, and I think the longer schedule has hit him as a rookie a little bit different than Beaudin. And then obviously Kalynuk just hasn't played the game, so he hasn't really hit the wall yet. But I I'm kind of ready to move on from Boquist. And I know there's a lot of fans that aren't, but I don't see it. Like, he already got a bad rap in the bubble last year against Vegas for kind of backing down on some plays, looking tentative. And while he's produced a little bit better this year offensively, he's constantly, it seems like, getting concussions, which is a problem. And especially at his age. And I don't see him as a top pair defenseman. I don't. Like, to me,
Yeah,
he's Eric Gustafson. He's a younger Eric Gustafson.
because Boquist is what, he's 22. Is that what he is?
Maybe
So
21.
I mean, do we for I guess for the Hawks fans that are like saying, well, he's young, maybe we got to give him more time to
And
develop,
I mean,
or
this is only his second season, so
yeah. I mean, did we rush him to bring
oh,
him up to this level?
I think for sure. And there's, I think it's Jay Zawoski on the Madhouse podcast stated that from what he's heard, they did, and it was John McDonough that basically forced them to call him up to sell tickets. And I think that's an interesting way to try to sell tickets, but I don't know. Like, I don't. I mean, there were questions when he was drafted, where he was drafted, whether he was a smart pick, because if I'm not mistaken, let me go back and I want to go back and look at that draft. Just to Was that 2017? Shit. Sorry, we're real professional here, folks.
Are we looking up where Boquist was drafted?
Yes. Well, it looks like it wasn't. Wait a minute. It must have been 2018 because it wasn't 2017. I think 2017 was Yoki Haru, actually, come to think about it.
Yeah, 2018.
Hmm. So, where was he picked here? Quinn Hughes, of course, was picked right before Boquist.
which it is. I mean, you looked at the NHL Central scouting. I'm looking at the final rankings of the top 10 um, players in that draft. They had, well, as far as North American skaters, Kachuk was number 2. Brady Kachuk was 2. Quinn Hughes was 6. But I'm looking at European skaters. Rasmus Dahlin was 1, and Boquist was 2.
Yeah. Just looking I don't think Evan Borchard hasn't made it to the NHL yet, has he? No.
Name doesn't sound familiar, so I'm thinking
And
not.
he played with Boquist in
Although they
21.
said he's currently playing for the Edmonton Oilers. So
Is he? Because I thought he was in Bakersfield. Oh, maybe he is. Um, Merkley hasn't really panned out because I think he's been on like 4 or 5 teams. It seems like now. Yeah. Okay. So, uh, the miss was probably Keandre Miller at 22 that went to the Rangers. I'm pretty sure he's playing with them and he's been doing pretty well. Beaudin was 27th. Granted, I'm just looking at the first round, by the way. Second round, I mean, we're probably getting into more hairs. I don't really see anything there.
but yeah,
But
I think at this point I think this boils down to, with Boquist and um maybe, like I said, maybe give him another year and see what happens. But because I don't know if it's so hard to like say, oh, are we throwing in the towel at a 21 or a 22-year-old that's hasn't been in the league, for really more than, what, 2 years. So I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. I don't see, and that's so. Here's my thinking on Boquist and Scott Powers put out a really good article today. If you have the Athletic, I suggest you go and read it. Um, his Powers points. He evaluated everybody on the defense from sports logic with a lot of analytics. Boquist actually, I think, was pretty good on there, but um, one of the things that was kind of stuck out that they talked about in there is it appears the Hawks don't have a number one defenseman or just a number one D man. And from where I'm sitting, in my opinion, I don't think Boquist is better than Kalynuk. I think you can debate whether he's better than Beaudin. Uh, it's hard, I think, because Beaudin doesn't have the game experience. I mean, Boquist has played 70 or so more games than Beaudin, I think, around there.
Yeah.
Same with Mitchell. But I'm pretty confident that Kalynuk is the best of the group from what I've seen. And, I think Beaudin, everybody kind of thought would be a 3 or a 4. Mitchell's maybe a 3, maybe a 4. So I think there is something to it that they don't have like a number 1 and maybe not even a number 2. They have like a bunch of 3s and 4s. It's like they're still looking for that like guy that they could pair with Murphy and then drop Keith down as he ages here to like the third pair. But like I mean, we've talked about on here, Joe, that like they just they've got so many prospects on defense, and now the forward crop, which we'll get to, is starting to get convoluted and complicated too. But that in that same article, they said that it's looking like we've talked about, that they're going to sign Jacob Galvis out of the Czech Republic, and I think he was a 5th-round pick for them. I'm not positive. I know Isaac Phillips, who I think they drafted this past year, who they've already signed, was a 5th-round pick, and he's played really well, and he's only 19, the Jamaican kid. And they've got Krudel here on an AHL deal. He's, again, 18, 19. Wyatt Kaiser appears to be another 2, or maybe a 2, or another 3, 4. And I'm wondering if I'll say this. So I've said previously that they need to draft a scorer. The problem is that this draft is heavy on D, especially in the top of the draft. No, but we don't know where they're going to draft. But assuming we're going off this theory that they still don't have like a legit number 1 defenseman, if they were to draft defenseman, I think you have to move Boquist. Because you need whoever you draft to play his minutes. Or you have to be comfortable enough to drop Keith down. And
is the defenseman you draft though going to be ready, to play right away?
I don't know, but eventually you're going to have to move on from some of these guys, and that's, I think we're probably looking at Zadorov maybe being another. I think they're going to lose to Han, but I think they're going to lose or move somebody else because, we talked about, and who the hell knows, again, with COVID, and I have no idea what they're going to be able to do with these governments, especially with Canada, because Canada's gone, at least Toronto has gone, and Ontario gone kind of nutso the last week or so here. But I don't know what next season's going to look like if they get rid of the taxi squad. The problem is I don't think you can get rid of it for the U.S. teams and then have the Canadians have it. So,
well, yeah, I think, and they have to probably make a decision on the divisions for next year too. Are you going to keep?
And how do you that's the other thing. How does the league plan its schedule? Because, I mean, me and Joe talked about it before we jumped on air here. The U.S. is going to probably be about 70 to 80% vaccinated here by July. We're at 41%, and that was based off numbers 2 days ago that have had at least a shot. So you figure another 2 months go by, 70%, I think, sounds very logical, if not higher. So even by October, that number's got to be close to damn near 100, or pretty much everybody that's wanted it's got it at that point. And that's the other thing. The numbers should start skyrocketing because it's opened up for anybody that wants it across the country at this point, 16 and up. So,
but yeah, I think it all depends, like you said, on
what
if Canada can start expediting their vaccination efforts, but I would think the NHL and the Canadian government are probably going to have to discuss, because they got to make decisions, like you said, on the season and schedule making, and I'm sure arenas have to kind of start to know, all right, well, what days do can we block off for other events? So,
well, at least in the U.S., that's the only thing I'd worry about in the U.S. Obviously, is I don't know if I'd worry about Canada too much on that regard, but I just like even with the I mean, it comes down to the border crossings, right? Like, are you going to allow? Because how many Canadian teams are there? 6.
Was it, yeah, or is it the 6 or 7? I think,
Because
right?
even if
Because
you
how many?
had, like, even if you had to, like, I was thinking you could move like their AHL players to like American teams, even if they stayed like because of the border and stuff, like if their AHL teams weren't able to play. But like I just it's the crossing the border, right? Because I can't imagine that you can make the divisions work again if all of the Canadian teams have to play in their own division again. And that doesn't seem fair either to the other teams because they got to play the whole league and they just avoid the Canadian league. Basically, like Canada's basically its own league at that point. So I don't know. Like I don't think it's going to be as seamless as everybody thinks it's going to be because like things are not like if you haven't paid attention, things are not going well up in Canada with all of this stuff.
Right.
So
And,
they're
but it all depends. Yeah, like I said, it maybe something will change, but I know probably, yeah, the NHL and the Canadian government are probably going to have to come up with some kind of contingency plan to, either work with these Canadian teams in another way, or do you keep the North Division with the Canadian teams for next year if things continue along the path they're on, and then just either realign or make another division, maybe like, not necessarily a Pacific division, but like a mountain division where, maybe you do Colorado, Arizona, you try to you try to maybe divide the Pacific with the teams kind of in the mountain time zone and make another division that way. I don't know.
yeah, dude, I don't know how, like, because even with the Central, like, who would be in the Central? Like Nashville, Dallas, Chicago, I assume Detroit, Columbus, St. Louis, move St. Louis back over here, throw Minnesota back. Uh, I don't know. Like
But yeah, like I said, it all depends on how you could fill out, because like I said, you have Seattle coming into the league. So,
that's
you figure
true. Yeah.
you got the Pacific, there's a lot of teams out in the Pacific that you're probably, the teams that you're going to have to move somebody into the Central, which I think we know which is going to be Arizona anyway. So either you make, like I said, a kind of like a quote unquote mountain division, and you maybe do like Arizona, Colorado. Um, I don't want to see
Vegas.
it because I want to see St. Louis obviously back in our division, because that's the main rivalry really with us in our division. But you either go with St. Louis and Minnesota in that mountain division, and maybe one more team. I don't know.
Well,
But
you got Arizona, Vegas, Seattle. So that's 3. Could you do 4-team divisions and throw Colorado in there? So that's
maybe,
4 teams.
yeah.
Top 2 teams make the playoffs.
So
I don't
it'll
know.
be interesting. Like I said, it'll be interesting to see. But I would imagine probably by, like you said, June or July, they're going to have to make a decision on, okay, well, we got to start getting things ramped up for the season, because at that point you're only like 3 to 4 months away. So I don't know when do schedules normally come out? Is that usually in July or August?
Um, yeah, I think it's usually July because
Okay.
I think it's around the time that free agency starts, which is usually July, right? I think
Yeah.
like July
So
1st or something around there. And I don't know when the draft this year, I think is it in June?
I think isn't it right? Usually it's not long. I don't think the expansion draft is long after the Stanley Cup final ends, right?
Yeah, but see that goes into June though. So NHL draft. It's okay, so the draft is the 23rd and 24th of July.
Okay.
Uh when is let's see here. See if I can just pull up NHL key dates. So the expansion draft is July 21st. July
All right.
9th.
So that's what 2 days. That's 2 days before the draft.
Yeah. So the July 9th would be game 7 of the final if there is one.
Okay.
July 28th is when free agency begins. So 4 days after the draft.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I think they said October 12th is when the season is tentatively scheduled to begin.
Which
So,
is like a week. That's like a week later than normal.
yeah.
Because I usually the week, or not even a week. It's probably just
I think
really
it's
four
about
days.
on time. Yeah.
I was gonna say it's usually it starts around like
And
October
10th.
8th.
Yeah.
So, but
So maybe about 5 days later than usual.
usually,
I think it's gonna be a struggle to get it there. I wouldn't
yeah,
be surprised if they started like the NBA where it's like the first week in November or last week of October. Um, I don't know. We'll see. But I don't know how all of that's gonna work because I can't see Canada playing ball on that right now, where their teams are able to come across the border. At least, until we get closer to October. So we'll see.
right.
But going back to the Hawks, I don't. They've got to do something on defense because I want to see the kids playing every day. Um,
Yeah, I
so
agree. But I think now that you're like you said, now that our playoff hopes are, pretty much dashed, I would have to think that the younger guys are going to start to get in more. Um,
I wish I hope they just shut Dahan down.
yeah, I mean, I think that's probably likely. I mean, now at this point, I mean, like you said, barring an unforeseen circumstance where, Nashville and Dallas both, lose X amount and the Hawks win X amount, whatever, to get them back in it. But
Yeah, I mean the
again,
Hawks at this point would have to basically win 7 out of their next. Well, I don't even think there are 9 games left. There's only 8 games left, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So they would, yeah, the Hawks would like have to win 7 out of the next 8 games, which is not going to happen
right, right.
because
So
what are they like with the
or
loss tonight? They're
five. I think they're five. Yeah, they're 5 points back now of Nashville.
so
So
they do have a game in hand,
right,
so that would put them 3 points back. But and Dallas has got what 3 games in hand on them now or
I believe
2
so. Yeah, yeah.
because Dallas didn't play tonight. So
But yeah, even like I said, I know all the beat writers and have pretty much said it's going to be between either Dallas or Nashville at this point on who's going to get that last spot.
right, and I think and that's I'm glad. I mean, we've talked about it, but I think the Hawks get more value out of being in the lottery than they do of making the playoffs and playing one of whoever the hell it is that wins the division. Because they're not going to beat whoever it is.
Right.
But on that note, so going back to the Powers article, which is full of goodies today, we've heard of Max Shalunov now year after year. Scott Powers has waxed his carrot poetically to it for years. It will be the culmination of his journalistic career should the Hawks ever sign this guy, which they actually did like 7 years ago. He played in where Toledo. I think Toledo was their ECHL team at that point. Um, very briefly, maybe one game with Rockford. Um, but he is playing in the finals or the final in the KHL right now. He has, I think, 18 points in 20 games, uh, 12 goals, I think it is, out of those 18 points. Um, and the Hawks were linked to this other gentleman. Probably gonna butcher his name, but his I'm pretty sure his first name is Demir, and I think his last name is pronounced Zafarov or something like that. They were linked to him in February, and they supposedly had offered him a contract, and it was between the Hawks and Red Wings. Those were the two teams that were known to be interested in him at that time. So I remember seeing that and kind of perking up a little bit. And I think anytime you see Steve Eiserman is interested in a player, considering he built Tampa Bay, and it's certainly looking like he just raped Washington on that Verona for Mantha trade that also added him a first round pick. And then that Moritz Sider that they picked up on D that everybody thought was a reach is looking like a great pickup. So anytime Steve Eiserman's interested, I guess I'm interested. Also considering the Hawks' European scouting, that would seem to indicate this guy's pretty good. And
Yeah.
his season is over, obviously, as they're in their finals. And for the season, he put up 61 points, including 21 goals in 58 games. Now, he is small. He's Alex DeBrincat small. He's 5'9" and 168 pounds. But Scott Powers is reporting that apparently somehow these two are a package deal. Now, somebody asked, I tweeted this out earlier today. Somebody asked, kind of what does that mean? And Scott, I guess, has us muted or something and decided not to respond. So, to the best of my knowledge, the way I take that is they must have the same agent. I don't know if it's Dan Milstein. Dan Milstein is the agent for most of those Russian players. He, I believe, is Panarin's agent. He's the agent Panarin switched to anyway. And my guess is the Hawks want to sign one of these guys. Could be the guy they don't have the rights to, who is, I was listed as the number one college and European free agent by Corey Pronman for this year. For those wondering, Pius Suter was number one last year. So the Hawks have a kind of a maybe like a running gag that they're going after the number one European guy every year. But yeah, my guess is that they want to sign one of them. Your guess is who? And their agent is trying to package them together, similar to Panarin and Victor Tikhonov, circa 2016 with Chicago, or the 2015-2016 season. So, for shits and giggles, let's say the Hawks signed both players. We have talked about ad nauseum now since the trade deadline about all these guys the Hawks have brought in. In that article as well was Henrik Borgstrom, who's currently playing in the playoffs in Finland. He has 2 assists in 3 games played in that playoff series, or I guess in the playoffs. I don't know how long their series are, but that's reported, and it was reported that they're expected to sign him. Powers also reported that they're expected to sign last year's first-round pick, 17th overall, Lucas Reichel, who is playing in the German playoffs at the moment. I think he just had a 3-point game yesterday. So things are getting weird because Jonathan Taves, we just found out, apparently is going to be back with the team next year as well. We found out, I believe, last week, Alex Nylander has started skating again. And Dylan Strome has found himself on the in the stands the last two games. So, assuming that Dylan Strome would be in the lineup should they just play with six defensemen, we've now, like, out of the guys that they're going to bring over, which again would be in the NHL, I would presume, you've got Taves and Nylander, who are already here, just injured. Then you've got Borkstrom, the center they just acquired from Florida, who will not be going to Rockford if they sign him. He specifically left Florida because he didn't want to play in the AHL. So there's no chance in hell if they sign him, he's going to end up in Rockford because he'll just leave.
Yeah.
So that's three guys now. Then there's the two Russians we just talked about, or I guess I talked about. So that's five. Then if they bring Reichel over, he could presumably go to the AHL. But again, first round pick, 17th overall last year's draft, apparently is putting up pretty good points over an Ice Baron in Berlin. Like I said, I think he had 3 points last night or the night before. And if he's ready, he's ready. So that's six guys now that are not on your team at this very moment. Six. You only play 18 skaters, 12 forwards. So you've already got half a team of potential guys you're talking about bringing over who are all going to want NHL spots.
Yeah,
So
it's going to be like I said. Yeah, I think we got to anticipate Stan Bowman being pretty busy this offseason to try to work some kind of magic to get a lineup that gels together and that can fit together. But I mean, I don't know what you like I said, I don't know what Stan Bowman's expectations are going to be for next year. I mean, depending on the money we have available to who we're going to bring in or who we're going to sign or who we're going to trade. I guess that's what he has to make that determination. Is next year another kind of block to the rebuild, or another brick to the house of this rebuild that we're redoing here?
well, I mean,
Or do you know?
we've talked about it. So I think, to me, I would much prefer him to just sign the Russian kids because there's definitely potential there based in their statistics. And, knowing that Eisenman's interested in one and the Hawks scouting, I guess, as well. And then it's kind of shit or get off the pot with Shalunov. Kid's 28 years old. That's
Right.
another interesting point. Demir is 27. So both of those guys are like kind of shit or get off the pot. Either they're going to come over or they're not.
Yeah.
Teams are not going to be bringing over 30-year-old Russians as rookies.
Right. Right.
So, you know, um, but if you do that, then you create kind of a problem because you've got so many guys. Now, they could, like we talked about, me and Joe, before jumping on, they could get rid of Connolly or scratch Connolly. I don't think many people would be disappointed in that. Carpenter, they can probably trade. So that opens up two spots. Strome, I think, is probably likely gone if they do all of that. Or maybe they get rid of Kubalik. Maybe Kubalik they think has more value to bring something back, and they just move on from him.
But do you think Bowman's probably priority has to be probably adding, like I think we talked about a little bit too, adding somebody that can put the puck in the back of the net on a, to complement with, Kane, DeBrincat, and Doc. I mean, I don't know what kind of season Taves is going to have next year. I mean, I don't think we're going to expect.
Well, yeah, even
you know,
even Taves is more, I think, of a playmaker, right? So I think Doc's a playmaker, Strome's a playmaker, Taves is a playmaker, Hinostroza is a playmaker. Um, Hagel is kind of just the new Andrew Shaw, but maybe more skilled. Um, kind of a blend of actually of Sod and Shaw together. And then Kubalik is supposed to be a scorer. The problem is he's inconsistent. Then
Yeah.
you've got Kane and DeBrincat as your other two scorers.
So it's like that's what I'm saying. I mean, do you think Bowman tries to either make a trade or do something to bring in some kind of scoring type player?
And, well, I think that's what the Russians are, right? Like that's and they're cheap because they'll be on entry level contracts.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where you're taking your shot. If one of them turns into Panarin, you look like a genius.
Right.
If
But
both of them turn out to be Pius Suitors, Dominic Kubalik's, not the worst case scenario. You're adding 80 points between the two players. Um, so that would probably help. But with, again, knowing that 2022 is a loaded draft, again, that's why I'd say I'd be more willing now to trade a Strom or a Kubalik to make roster space for these two Russians and take a flyer on them to see what I get. And then even if I don't get anything, same with the defense. I think next season is the year that you have to take risks. So it kind of sink or swim. Bring all your rookies in, play them, or not just rookies, but young players. So play your Kalynuks every day, play your Beaudins, your Mitchells every day. Uh, your Hagels, Hinostroza is not young anymore. He's gonna be 28. But figure out what if you bring the Russians over, figure out what they are. If you want to play Reichel, play him. See if Alex Nylander is anything. Like I said to Joe, and I don't know if you probably disagree with me, but I'd kind of like to see Nylander now. Like if he's cleared, let me see him because if he's and again, I know he's coming off an injury.
and has he been cleared to like play or just practice?
I don't know. Like
No.
he's skating, so he's
Right. So
well,
I'm assuming, but I maybe he's just been cleared to practice, but not getting game action yet. That I don't know.
yeah, maybe, but
So,
I think it's really hurt Bowman. I think or put him in a tough spot to not know what you have in Nylander because if Nylander is not any good and you know that, but somebody else doesn't necessarily do, then maybe you keep Strom or you keep Kubalik or whatever. Because that's the other thing. If you bring these Russian guys over, you don't really want them on the fourth line. And you don't want Nylander on the fourth line either. And you don't really want Kubalik there either. And, to me, assuming they re sign Vinnie, your third line is going to have. And by the way, so to talk about the game tonight, this is a reference. They didn't, Colleton did not put Vinny and Hagel together. Why? They scored the game winning goal on Wednesday. They have natural chemistry. Twitter blew up with their love affair. And then you come back tonight and you go back to the old lines that didn't work on Wednesday until you scored 3 goals in that 3 minutes. Like, I swear to God, Colleton is like slow.
well, you and then now you just wonder, like, now that the Hawks, like I said, are pretty much out of it. Does he maybe now he goes back to that line with nothing to lose? But
I
I don't
mean,
know.
maybe, but see, and so in that line, I like Doc on that line, even though it's the third line. I really like Doc between those two because you've got Doc, who's big, who can cut up the middle. You got Vinny with his speed and has been creating a lot of chances with his back checking. And then you've got Hagel that back checks too, that can score and create. So I really like, and I think Doc too, as he develops, could kind of develop into kind of a shutdown center too with his size. That could really be a scoring third line that can also play defense. And then you keep Kane and DeBrincat together. Maybe you throw Borgstrom on that second line center spot and move Suter somewhere else on the fourth line, I guess. Or you put him with Taves and Kubalik, but then Nylander's down on the fourth line. And again, if that's the best you got for Nylander, I think you're probably better off in trying to just move him. But and that see that therein lies the problem. We haven't talked about any of the guys other than Borgstrom that we're bringing in here that are new. And I think that's just you haven't seen enough of of Nylander to know what he is. We haven't seen enough of these defensemen to really know what they are. And we're in a fucked position because there's not enough roster spots. But you can't really send these guys down to Rockford because
well, some of them, it's like you may not have, I don't know, whatever ones you maybe can still do, even though they might be pissed about it. I think you have to.
Well, yeah, like Kurashev for sure will be in Rockford most likely. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that because he's really tapered off. But Nylander is in his fifth season now. You can't do it to him. And plus you got to re-sign Nylander too. His contract is up. He's a restricted free agent. So on his next contract, I don't think he'll be able to be sent to Rockford without having to clear waivers.
Right. And who knows, if with Nylander, he's a restricted free agent, but he was hurt all this year. Do you imagine a team throws an offer sheet on him? I wouldn't think so, but maybe one will.
I mean, no, I don't think so because the Hawks could just match it. They're not going to give Nylander a lot of money, right, on an offer sheet. So the Hawks would just match it. And the Hawks don't have if a team offer sheeted him, they have nothing. That's just, I think that'd be a dick move that would just set up the Hawks to screw that team over potentially later on. If the Hawks ever do have cap space to weaponize like that. But I don't know. I keep coming back to Strome and Kubalik. Do you see those guys as part of the future of the team? Because Strome, I think it's pretty clear he's probably on the block and he's young. Kubalik's interesting because he's so one-dimensional and then he's inconsistent, right? So he scored the other night, and then he didn't tonight. So he has one goal in his last 7 or 8 games.
Yeah,
that's for Kubalik. That's not enough. I'm sorry, but that's not enough. You need him to score, and at a regular basis. And if he's not going to do that, then I think he's got to be attractive to other teams. Plus, you have to look at the fact that he's got 1 year left on his contract, and he's going to want to get paid in a year. And in that same year, you're going to have to re-sign Doc, Mitchell, Boquist. I mean, and you've got
to. Do you think the Hawks, as far as their goaltending situation? I mean, I think we know that Lankkinen's the number one. Do they try to trade Subban for something? Whether
I don't know I don't know what you'd get for him.
Yeah,
he hasn't played enough to really establish himself yet. I mean, he's been around a while, but he hasn't, and was kind of garbage, right? He was left in the dumpster pile of hell, and the Hawks picked him up and have kind of, in a way, have rehabilitated him, but I don't think he's there yet to where he has value. He probably has value.
But maybe another team could see his, at least, especially his past performances outside of, really tonight. But yeah, he's still played. I say, decently. I mean, yeah, is he going to get you obviously a first or a second or an early round pick? No, but at least you're shedding some of him. Some of that's at least whatever his salary is. I know it's not a lot, but he could easily be replaced in a backup role with somebody else.
Well, I mean, yeah, Delia probably. I mean, and Delia's
So
making more money than he is. So,
right, right,
like, I don't know. I think Subban will be here next year. Like, I think at most that you'd get for him would be like a seventh rounder, at maybe a sixth. But
yeah.
I don't even know if you could get that. But
So
like, I just and that's the other thing. You got to re-sign Lankinen too, who's going to need a huge increase, assuming he's the starter next year. So all at the same time, you're going to have Doc up, you're going to have Lankinen up, you're going to have if you still got Boquist, he's up. Then you've got Mitchell, you've got Beaudin, you've got all of these young players that are going to need new deals. So
so in essence, next year, a lot of them are playing for pay increases. I would think.
well, yeah, and I mean Lankinen will almost get it by default, right? Because so he's only making 800,000 now,
Hmm.
and even with the average year, I would think he would get an increase up to at least 3 million as a starter. So he's probably looking at 3 to 4 million, I would think, in an
Right.
increase
And
after
that's the
another.
thing, if these guys that are going out there and trying to earn new contracts, well, the proof is in the pudding. They're going to have to play to the abilities to where Stan Bowman's going to have difficult decisions to warrant giving them pay increases and new contracts. If they don't play up to it, well, then sorry, you're going to have to try somewhere else.
Yeah, that's true. But like again, they're in like a rock and a hard place too, because you don't want to lose guys either that you can get an asset back for. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so that's why I keep coming because I think Kubalik will be. I got it up here. Let me look. So he'll still be a restricted free agent at the end of this deal. So that's a positive. Uh Strom, he's got a similar contract, but they just I don't know. Like they've got to figure out something. Somebody's that's a regular on the roster right now has to go for sure. And it's to me, it's either Strom or Kubalik. And I don't. It's probably Strom, but at that point, I wonder because Strom's 24, Kubalik's 25. Kubalik is going to cost a lot more to re-sign than Strom will. So I don't know. And they're different players. Strom's a playmaker. Kubalik's is supposed to be a scorer, even though he's not scoring. And that's what you need. So if you move Kubalik, do you hurt yourself there? I mean,
Well, and I think they're going to be hesitant to move him simply because they're going to maybe, unless this is just my thinking or maybe Stan Bowman is thinking it too. If you get Taves back on a line with Kubalik, then it'll kind of reignite to where he was in 2020. That's maybe what he's thinking. So he might be a little bit hesitant to move Kubalik in that retrospect alone.
yeah, but let me so Kubalik's basically on pace to do this year to do what he did last year. His goal scoring's down, but his assists are way up. So like he in 68 games last year, Kubalik had 46 points, 30 of them were goals, 16 assists.
Yeah.
He's played 47 games this year. He already has 15 assists. So basically he's already matched in about 20 games less. He's already matched his assist output from last year. The problem is his goals are way down. He's at
Right. And I
15.
think that's maybe what they're saying because, like, what we're talking about Kubalik being a goal scorer.
Right.
Okay, well, we want him to get goals, not assists. So we'd rather see him, in more having more goals than assists. So maybe what like I'm saying, and maybe what Bowman's maybe thinking is, okay, well, if Taves is healthy and comes back, he can help set him up to help, Kubalik put the puck more in the net more often than he did this year.
Well, and Suter's played the same amount of games and has 23 points, 13 goals, 10 assists, and his contract is up this year. So, I mean, he almost has an argument to make just as much as Kubalik does. Kubalik's making $3.7 million.
Yeah,
So that's going to be another interesting contract. Granted, the economy's down, obviously.
right.
That might impact it a little bit in a flat cap, but I don't know. And we haven't even talked about Adam Gaudette, who's played in one game. He's still hanging around. If they want him back, they've got to re-sign him. Like
Well,
this.
what is? I mean, that's. I guess we're all going to have to see what the Hawks are. They up against the cap? Are they, tight
I can tell
against
you right
again?
now. So next year they have 72 million committed. So they have $9 million in cap space.
To work with.
Yep.
So obviously that's not enough with all the guys that are going to need contracts. So, like you said, you're going to have to either shed salary any way you can with and
Well,
you're
I mean, if they
so,
lose DeHaan, that's 5 million right there.
right. So okay, so that bumps you up. So, but again, even Dahan alone is not enough.
Oh,
So
I think it is. That's you're talking. What did I say? They have 9 million, so that's 14 million. So they have to re-sign Camp. Camp's probably getting a million and a half. I can't see Gaudette getting more than he's making now. So let's just say same contract. Hinostroza maybe gets 2 mil, so $1 million increase. Nylander's going to get the same thing he's making now. So that's $1 million, under $1 million. The goalies are all signed. Zadorov hasn't been re-signed, so that'll be a big chunk there at 3-something. Unless they move him. But Stillman needs a deal again, probably $1 million. So
or if they don't bring him in, if they don't bring him back.
or if he's, let's hope Seattle does us a favor and takes Dawn.
Yeah. Right.
And then Hagel needs a new deal, and Hagel will probably be maybe 2 mil and a half on a 2-year deal. So again, they should be just the 5 million from Dahan should. I mean, that'll sign Camp, Nylander, Hagel, and then they got 9 million, so they can get Suter a couple mil raise. They should be fine. Still have like about 6 or 7 million in space. So,
Well, yeah, we'll see what happens. But
but do you think? I mean, we talked about like the draft. Do you think if they can get a number one defenseman, do you think they go for it? If they think he's a number one defenseman,
if they think he's going to be, like you said, you need to start finding guys that are going to be, like we said, I think we have a lot of mid pairings, late, low line pairings. I think you got to start finding top pair defensemen, top tier defensemen,
I
guys
think
that are going to be, the future Keith and Seabrook.
I think
Um,
Kalynuk might be a smaller version of Seabrook.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
what did he? Kalynuk had 3 block shots and 1 hit tonight, so that's not exactly great. Zadorov finally started hitting again. He had 7. And then Stillman hits 2. But like, I think Kalynuk could be a second, a number 2 potentially. But I
Right.
think the rest of them are probably that we've seen anyway are probably 3s and 4s.
Worse. So yeah, you need to
Yeah.
start. Like I said, yeah, if you could get a 1 or a 2, you need it. So
but what do they? Okay, so what do they did? What's a bigger need? A number one defenseman or a guy that can score?
Yeah, I mean, and I see it's so hard because yeah, I mean, obviously we can't put the puck in the net, but I, I'm just thinking in terms of I'm a defense I mean maybe it's just me because I played defense and I'm more of the offense scores goals, defense wins championships type guy. And you can I feel like and I know the Hawks have a plethora of defensemen, but are what are the odds of the defenseman that they have turning into, like we talked about, one and number one and number two type defenseman?
Well, I think the only guy that's there is that they have signed is Kalynuk. I don't think Boquist is a one or a two.
Right. So
Beaudin is at best a two, and I think he's better at a three or four. Same with Mitchell. Maybe Kaiser at UMD, but they haven't signed him yet. So, and we haven't seen him. So I don't want to say anything on him without having like watched him yet.
yeah,
Obviously, the prospectus is good, at least from college, but again, that doesn't always translate. So,
that's
um,
why I think, like I said, if there's a guy up there that could be like I said, a first line pairing defenseman, or I would say though, you know what, I'll even eliminate a second line pairing defenseman if it's a top tier and he's going to play on your top unit of defense. Absolutely, I think you got to go after him. But if there's somebody that you feel is out there that's going to light up the scoreboard, and you feel like he's going to be an eventual 30 plus goal scorer, then you got a decision to make. But I don't know if I'd want to be the one making the decision.
so like I know Owen Power is the projected number one. Luke Hughes is projected three, and I'm just mentioning the top defensemen. Simone Edvinson is number four. Brant Clark is number five. So 4 out of the first 5 picks are projected to all be defensemen. The next closest defenseman is projected to be the 14th pick, which is the pick right after the Hawks, which is Carson Lambos. He's 6'1", 201 pounds. The problem is I don't believe he's played at all this year. And then I don't know. Like, there's some other defensemen here, but once you start getting past the top 10, I think you might be better off at looking at a forward. So I don't know. So it's interesting because they've got at 12 going to Vancouver, or just let me preface this. What I'm looking at has the projected picks where they think they're going to go, and then where the team is in the standings. So at 12, the projected pick is Atu Ratu, which is Vancouver. Atu Ratu 2 years ago was the projected first overall pick in this draft. So the Hawks are right there on him if they want him. Another guy that I think is interesting is Cole Sillinger. I think I've mentioned him previously. He's a goal scorer. He's a center. Fabian Lysel's another guy I've seen around where the Hawks are going to be, from Sweden. And I'm not sure what to think of him because he's kind of he doesn't played that much this year. McTavish, again, is projected at 15. He's interesting. But I don't know. This draft is just so hard to predict, and it's not a very good draft on top of it. So I don't know. Like, I really don't envy Bowman in this position.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I think that's why I keep saying, like, if you could move Strom or Kubalik to one of these teams that's in the lottery, right? A team that's not making the playoffs in hopes that they miss the playoffs again, because next year's draft is literally loaded, at least in the top 10 picks. So if somehow you can end up with a top 10 pick, you're like getting a superstar player most likely. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting couple months we have coming up here. Um, but with that, I think that's going to wrap this up. We can obviously go into more depth in this later as we get closer to these events happening. But again, the Hawks lose tonight, 3-1. Vinnie Hinostroza again has been on a tear lately. He scored the Hawks goal. Assists were to Wyatt Kalynuk and Nick Beaudin in his first game back in quite a while. Subban, not a good game. Hawks are pretty much out of the playoffs at this point, barring a miraculous comeback. And by miraculous, I mean miraculous. But literally, Disney would probably make a movie about angels in the neutral zone or something about if the Hawks somehow came back and made the playoffs at this point, especially against considering their schedule. But on that note, everybody, again, sorry that we kind of to me, I'm much more interested in the future of the team at this point than talking about a game where they were just shit tonight. So
Right.
we'll probably be doing that a lot more. And then in the remaining games, probably be focusing in on certain players, how they performed, the youth, that is, the younger players. And yeah, so the next game, game 49, is coming up on Tuesday. So we got a nice 3 days off here. And we're rewarded with Tampa Bay.
Right. Well, again, let's see, what the what the young guys can now do, as I'm sure they're going to get a lot more playing time. Um, so,
Well, I guess I haven't come out and asked you yet. If Nylander's clear, do you play him or do you just hold him out till next week?
I'd hold them out
Okay.
because, God forbid something happens to him again, and then you jeopardize
Yeah.
him losing next season. So I think at this point there's nothing to play for. Why risk it?
Oh,
So
do you hold Doc out?
potentially, maybe, yeah. I mean, that's probably
Well, because
something.
that's so. I mean, they've got Gaudette, right? I would assume they would want to evaluate, and then Hardman, that college free agent they signed, he's still bouncing around too.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, I would think for Bowman, at least you would want to see these guys play, so you could kind of make it like we've been, at least I've been musing about the last half hour here about all of these guys that they've got to start making decisions on. Um, yeah, and Strome too. If you sit Doc, then you can throw Strome back up in the top 6 and just tell him, kid, like your career in Chicago is like on the line, kid.
yeah. Right.
So
So
you better
yeah, we'll
show
see
us
what happens
something.
here in these next these next
Games.
7 games or 8 games or whatever it is. So,
Yep.
but
So yeah, again, thanks everybody for listening. Obviously, kind of a sombering game now that we know the playoffs are out, but let's just appreciate the fact, right, that we got to even think about the playoffs this season, because I think I had us at like one of the 5 worst teams in the league, probably early in my predictions. So we had meaningful games. We still got meaningful games coming up to see how the kids develop. And yeah, it's been fun, I think. So try to stay positive. And then again, as I always say, uh, check in on your friends and loved ones, make sure they're doing okay. Uh, and keep doing what we're doing. I think we're coming out of this hell, hopefully, get back to normal as we enter summer here. So, again, that'll wrap this up for, what is this, game 48, the 2020-21 season. Hawks fall to Nashville 3-1. We will be back with you on Wednesday morning with a review of game 49 between the Hawks and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Hopefully, we have a better outcome, which would be quite hilarious, wouldn't it, Joe, if they like blow Tampa out of the water on Tuesday?
Yeah, I mean, it's like it wouldn't be surprising because obviously you always play. I think, a little bit better when you got nothing to lose. So,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. So, but we'll see.
Oh, well, I think we're going to see Lankinen. Do you think we're going to see Lankinen?
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think Lincoln will probably start against Tampa and probably most of the games I would think going forward here.
Do you think
So
we go back to 6D and get Strome back in?
yeah, probably.
Okay.
So
All right.
just like I said again, we don't really have a lot to play for anymore. So I'm sure Colleton, and he's gonna probably mix things up and probably just go back to a regular lineup. I mean, because obviously at this point now playing with if a defenseman does go down, 5D, playing with 5D isn't going to make the difference, obviously, in making the playoffs or not. So,
Right. Well, that's going to do it for us, folks, because quite frankly, I'm tired and I'm pretty sure Joe's getting pissed that we haven't gotten off here yet because it's
no,
1:20 in the morning and we need to go to sleep. And you all are probably out partying.
yeah.
So,
So,
yeah, that's going to wrap this up. Again, thanks for listening. Leave us a comment if you have anything to say. And let's go Hawks.
yeah. Let's look forward to the future. And like I said, I think Hawks fans, just to kind of wrap this up for me, you have to look at the bigger picture. I think the team exceeded a lot of our expectations. We were right in the playoff hunt until 8 games left. So I think that's a win. I know it's a moral victory, and I know most of us don't like moral victories, but with the team in the way it's in its current state, it's a win. So let's just enjoy the last 8 games here and look forward to the future.
I will drink to that. And with that, good morning, everybody. And we're going to
Yeah.
go to sleep. Let's go,
Thanks
Hawks.
again, everybody.